Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel. So on today's video, I'm going to show you how I made this sugar sheet. It's a trending technique on the internet. It's all over Instagram, and today I'm going to demystify it for you. This is a slight variation of it, and in my opinion, it's a little bit easier. So I hope you like it. I hope you try it, and let's get started. For this technique, I'm going to be using Flex Frost sheets from Icing Images in the color black. I also have sanding sugar. I'm going to need CMC powder and light corn syrup. To begin, I'm going to place my sanding sugar into a bowl. I'm also going to go ahead and add my CMC powder, and I'm going to add my corn syrup to the exact same bowl. Now, as far as these ingredients, the CMC powder is to give our sheet a little bit more flexibility, and the corn syrup is to help us bind the sugar and all of the ingredients together, and it's also going to work with the CMC powder to give our sheet some flexibility. In this video, I am going to show you two techniques that can be done, one with the Flex Frost sheet and one without it, which is basically just using these three ingredients in this bowl. Once we have all three ingredients into the bowl, we're going to do exactly what I'm doing here. So with a little spatula, you're going to just go ahead and combine your ingredients. And at first, it's going to seem a little bit dry, but basically what I did is I added 2 tablespoons of corn syrup first, mixed it in, and then I added 2 more and another final tablespoon of corn syrup. So in total, it's 5 tablespoons of corn syrup. I just added them in phases so that I could see the differences in the texture. But like I said, all the ingredients and the measurements will be in the description box below. So now that I have all my tablespoons of corn syrup, I'm just going to keep incorporating all of my ingredients until they become a grainy paste. Also, as a reference, this mixture does start to get a little bit, not hard, but it starts to bind together very quickly. So if you feel that when you start to spread it, it's not thin enough or it's not spreading for you, what I did is I did go ahead and place it into the microwave for 5 seconds to see if that would work, and then if not, place it back in for another 5 seconds. Don't heat it up too much because you're just going to end up melting your mixture. For my first technique, I did go ahead and leave my Flex Frost sheet with the backing on, and I'm just going to go ahead and moisten the sheet with Paper Potion from Icing Images. If you don't have this product, you can definitely use water to moisten the sheet. And now I'm just simply going to take our mixture and I'm going to spread it. So basically what this Flex Frost sheet is, it's already flexible and it's like a fabric sheet that is edible. It is going to speed up the process of you being able to use this sugar sheet, and at the end you'll see the results. Like I said in the beginning, this is a Flex Frost sheet, so it is going to maintain its flexibility, whereas with the original sugar sheet technique, sometimes the sheet does become a little bit more brittle or a little bit harder. This is the part where I mentioned that if you feel like your mixture is a little bit too hard, you can place it into the microwave for 5 seconds so that it becomes a little bit more pliable. But basically what I'm doing here is I just want to go ahead and spread the entire paste that I created evenly throughout my sheet. It doesn't have to be evenly, but for the purpose of you being able to use the entire sheet, that is what you have to do. And you have to be really patient. So you'll notice that halfway I did switch the spatulas that I was using. This spatula that I'm using seemed a little bit too hard and it was hurting my wrist. So I did go ahead and change to a plastic spatula. It was a lot more pliable, a lot easier to use. In creating this video, I decided to leave all of this in, although it seems a little bit boring, but when doing research, I couldn't find a good explanation of what the sugar sheet is. So this is how I demystify it. It's probably not how everybody else is doing it. It is an easier version in my opinion because I did try several of the things that I saw on the internet and they were a little bit harder. So I really do hope that you appreciate all this extra footage and all this what just seems like repetitiveness. And then what I'm doing here, since I was finding that at the end I was having trouble spreading the mixture, I did go ahead and take the backing of another sheet that I had used, and I'm simply going to roll out my mixture so that it becomes thinner and so I can spread it out to the corners. And in a little bit, I'll tell you exactly what I did with that top sheet that took off some of the mixture, because that is essentially our second technique. And in here, I'm just trying to spread out what was left on my sheet of my mixture to the edges so that I can go ahead and prepare it to dehydrate this sheet. Also, I want to remind you that when creating this technique, you can definitely use your own color. So you can use sanding sugar in the colors that you want, and also you can use flex frost sheets in the colors that you want. You don't have to use black flex frost and black sanding sugar. And for my next step, before I dehydrate it, I am going to add some of this diamond dust. And I just want it to be a little bit glittery, so that's why I'm doing that. And as you can see, my sheet is being prepared on a drying rack for my dehydrator. So basically what I did is I dehydrated this sheet at 100 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes. As I mentioned in the beginning, there is a second technique. So if you remember from the beginning, we did a mixture of sanding sugar, corn syrup, and CMC powder. And here I have the top of the sheet that I used to roll out my first technique. For this part, I would recommend that if you don't have flex frost sheets, you can definitely do those 3 ingredients into a mixture, but I would recommend to spread them onto a non-stick mat because it will be easier to remove the mixture once it's dehydrated. Here's the result of the mixture with my flex frost sheet. As you can see, the sugar sheet is very flexible because, like I mentioned in the beginning, the flex frost sheet already has that flexibility, but we added the texture of the sugar on top of it. In this part of the video, you are going to see me decorating a dummy cake. So basically, if you are creating this for a dummy cake or a display cake, you would simply add vegetable shortening to your dummy cake. But I also left here a few tips on attaching this technique to fondant cakes and buttercream cakes. As I've seen the flex frost sheet work, it works great with buttercream and fondant. So that's also a reason why I chose to add this technique to the back of a flex frost sheet. And you can also store this already made sugar sheet into those airtight containers, lay it flat, and it'll last you a few weeks like this. So if you needed to prepare it ahead of time, you could. For this specific part of the decorating, I did go ahead and take a pen blade, and I'm not cutting a straight line. I'm going to cut a jagged edge, and on some of the cuts I am going higher, and on some of them I am going lower to create that effect that the original sugar sheet technique has, where it has a little bit of a jagged edge. Another one of my favorite things of using the flex frost sheet with this technique is that it's very easy to create and to bind the seam at the back or wherever you bind the both pieces of the sheet. So it's not as hard to cut through a sugar sheet with flex frost as it is with just sugar. And here I'm just adding a topper to my cake, and like I showed you in the beginning, I also want to make this into like a little gold edge on the top of my sugar sheet technique. So I am going to go ahead and add super gold from the Sugar Art, and I'm just simply mixing it with a little bit of Everclear, and I'm going to paint the edge of the top of this sheet. Here's a bit of a closer look of how the sugar sheet looks once you place it onto a cake. And like I said in the beginning, you can definitely modify this to any color of sanding sugar that you would like to create this technique. So I really hope that you enjoy this process. Don't forget that if you have questions, you can leave them in the description box below. I also want to show you how the sugar sheet looks the next day. So here I have a piece that I left out drying just on the table. This is the flexibility that it maintains the next day. I love it. I think it looks beautiful. And like I said, what helps this technique is that the Flex Frost sheet already has this flexibility. I also want to show you how that second technique looks. So here is how my sheet looks after I dehydrate it. Like I said, it's better to spread this onto a non-stick silicone mat so that you're able to pull it off of the mat easier. Some things that I do want to mention is that obviously it is a sugar sheet, so for the back, you won't need too much to attach it to a cake because the back is a little bit stickier than the Flex Frost sheet. So in my opinion, that's one of the pros, is that it's very easy to attach to a cake, cookies, macarons. It is a lot of flexibility. There is a lot of flexibility on it, just like with the Flex Frost sheet. And like I mentioned in the beginning, a lot of that comes from the CMC powder and the corn syrup reacting together. Thank you so much for watching today's tutorial. Don't forget that if you do have any questions, you can leave them in the comment box below. Also, make sure to check the description box because that's where I'll leave any links to measurements, any of the materials that I used. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to share this video with a friend, subscribe before you go, and don't forget to give this video a like. I'll talk to you next time. Bye!